but I was doing this trick that I have done before at a show, and I had an accident. I was pulling vapor out of the hole in my special customized torches and accidentally pulled out white gas, which is super flammable. And my face and my neck caught on fire so fast. It all happened in a matter of seconds. At the time, I had a lot of adrenaline, so I couldn't really feel the pain yet, but I went straight to the bathroom and there was like, sorry to get graphic, but there was like skin coming off my face and my neck. And at first I was like, as a diehard performer, I was like, well, I don't look that bad. I can just put a sparkly mask on and go finish the show. But this chick was like, I am a nurse and I'm saying you can't go back out there and you need to go to the emergency room.
All right, welcome back to another episode of A Path Unfolding. My guest today is Phoenix. She is a dancer, performer, artist, choreographer, and a costume designer, among much, much else. Phoenix, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So good to have you on. We were both at Arcadia Festival. This is Aubrey Marcus's festival that he hosted in Las Vegas this year. So many of our mutual friends were there. And I think we were watching either Dirt Wire or maybe Moon Tricks. And I looked over and I was like, she has an amazing story. I've got to get her on the podcast. And I asked you and you're like, yes. So I'm so glad to have you here today. I want to dive into your story, and you've done so much. There's so much to dive into and learn about your path and how you've created this amazing life and all of the great stuff that you're putting out in the world, creating, dancing, performing. So yeah, let's jump right in and get going. I want to hear about how you first started going in the industry. What kind of drew you in? How did that all start?
Well, I guess it goes way back. I went to my first rave when I was 15, so we're going way back here. But it was my first introduction to electronic music, and at the time, I mean, Skrillex was up and coming. It was like this whole wave of like a new genre of music that was just so heart opening and life changing. That kind of paved the way for like all the music that we're hearing and listening to now, and it absolutely blew my mind. And I had never been in such a like creative, heart opening kind of community. I grew up in Austin, Texas, so very fortunate that happened. So I guess it started with raves, and then it gradually entered into Lightning in a Bottle was my first festival that completely blew my mind. It helped me follow my heart, quit my 9 to 5, dropped out of college, which doesn't sound ideal for a lot of people, but for me, it was the perfect thing to do. Went to my first Burning Man the same year, and I was just like, I'm going to be a full-time artist. Am I allowed to curse on this podcast?
Oh, absolutely. Let it
Okay,
fly.
great, because I kind of curse like a sailor. And so I was like, fuck the Matrix, fuck this societal norm and what we're supposed to do. I'm a first-generation American, so my family's from Vietnam. They really wanted me to follow the linear path of going to college, getting a good job, AKA being a doctor or a lawyer, like have a family. And I was just like, that is just not me. And surrounding myself with the community and the artistry and the music, which in my opinion, absolutely saved my life, allowed me to really have the courage to follow my heart and be where I am today.
Wow. You do have a lot of courage. I can see that on stage. What year did you see Skrillex? Where was that?
I think it was Nocturnal Wonderland. That must have been like 2011, maybe even 2010. Wow. Like, I'm not sure.
Nice. I have a really crazy, I got to open up for him at the Austin Music Hall. And that was even before I had created Gravitas. And that was one of the ways that Gravitas got started. And I downloaded a bunch of music from people that were on this Glitch Hop forum. And then I recorded the mix and I posted it back to that forum. And that was some of the early artists on the label came out of that forum and that whole situation. So yeah, similar in like Skrillex changed the game. I think he really brought so much creativity to the space. So amazing. So Vietnam, your family were really pushing you to go the tried and true path. I'll say this, I think your work ethic and your ability and your talents, like I mean, you probably absolutely could do anything you wanted. So you found your heart in dance or performance. And then this has led to now you're going all around the world performing with amazing people. You know, we have a shared, friend and person that we both work with, Velana Marcus, and you were just recently performed with her as well, right? Where was that?
Yes. So we did Arcadia together, but then we also did Serbia at Exit Festival, which was an incredible festival. And she's just such an amazing human and artist and everything I admire in someone in the community. So it was an absolute honor to perform for her. And her new album is all about the awakening of the goddess and a lot of phoenix energy. And that's kind of how we really connected, was this phoenix Kali, like dark goddess awakening, like fuck the system kind of energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that song Phoenix. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and she had a whole like epic movie that went along with the whole EP. And I believe you and your friend Lizzie and maybe some of your other performer troops were involved in the recording of that, right?
Yeah, so Lizzie and I, unfortunately, were not in her beautiful visual album, but we got to do her first live album performance in Sedona at their summit
Oh, that's right.
together.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we did a few shows together. But yeah, just embodying that fire, embodying that Phoenix Vilana energy, being able to create that vision for her has been such an honor.
Mm, yeah. And we have so many shared acquaintances. I guess I want to go back to when you and I first met. I think the first time I ever met you in person was you had just performed with the Desert Dwellers. And then I think also Schwangel that night at the Fillmore in Denver. And we ended up at an after party. Obviously, I saw you perform, but then we really got to connect. And I was like, whoa, this person is awesome. You cracked me up that night too. You were telling some good jokes.
I was on one and you were wearing a unicorn onesie, I believe. And I was in this
Yes.
full iridescent outfit and I had a few hours until I had to be at the airport. So I was like, I'm staying up all night. I'm going to hang out and be present with this beautiful community and just head straight to the airport.
There is that dilemma. It's like, well, the show ends at 2, and then we're packing up, and then we're done at 3, and then my flight's at 6. So I try to get an hour. It's so painful to wait. So nope, I'm just gonna stay up. Let me go.
I know it's this really interesting. It's sometimes a struggle to balance that, like, okay, like my physical health, but then being
Mm,
present and also
mm,
like connecting with the community. So it's been
yeah.
a journey trying to navigate that, but I've never regretted those all nighters and staying up late and doing hood rat shit with some amazing people.
Good times, good times. Yeah, I mean, there are real, I will say I try to pick my punches. Like you said, it's like I need to get some sleep, or there is sometimes some some trouble to get into. So let's find the right time and the right place. But there are great relationships like ours that come out of that. So absolutely. I wanted to dive into like how have you been able to make this a career? I mean, I know people that are they'll perform, they'll dance on the weekends, they'll do this, but then they're still having to do the 9 to 5. It feels like when were you able to go from that to like really go full time all in, and
Mm.
just walk me through that mentality? Because I get that question a lot of like, oh, I want to do music full time, or I want to do this full time. How can I make this work? And I think there's a lot of different ways to approach that question.
Mm. Yeah, I get that question a lot too, and I have chills right now just thinking about it. I would say I went full force into it when I was 25. I've been a fire artist for 11 years now. I didn't start performing until a few years into that, and it started off with just small parties, and then I realized that I could go to festivals, bringing that art into it and immersing myself in the community. And at 25, I kind of packed up 2 bags and suitcases and just decided that I was going to travel the world. And I was in a more extreme kind of hippie mentality at the time. So just really seeing how far I could push. Fuck the matrix. Fuck. I was in this really deep deconditioning of everything I had ever known. Because, I had just gone to LIB, just did Burning Man, which absolutely blew my heart open and everything I thought I ever knew about life in the world and what was possible. Like that experience to me really allowed me to believe like if we put our heart and soul into something and do what we love, anything is possible. Seeing the magic that people can just create out of just pure intent, you know. And it was really challenging for me in the beginning. I'm not going to say it was easy, you know, like adjusting my relationship with money and how I'm able to obtain it, how to kind of cultivate income and relationships in a really authentic way, you know, because we hear a lot about like networking and connecting, but I wanted it to be really real for me and really authentic, not coming from a place of wanting to get something, but that pure intent of just wanting to connect and allow the flow to happen and any of the collaborations that's meant to happen to happen. Um, at first, I really struggled. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. A lot of moments came up where I'm like, maybe I need to get another job. You know what I mean? But really, I don't want to sound too cliche, but I truly believe in the bottom of my heart and soul that if you love something and you're willing to take that leap and take that risk, and even though you feel the fear, leaning into the fear, being really honest and real with yourself, like you will be propelled in the exact direction that you're meant to be. You know, and anything that's ever worth it doesn't always come easy, you know, especially when it takes a lot of like ancestral deconditioning of like who I thought I was, how I'm able to be happy and support myself and be independent. But, you know, we live in a really beautiful paradigm and society where we can really do whatever we want, especially as a woman. Like, I don't need to be a housewife anymore. I don't need to follow this system. And it was really scary feeling like I was in this new paradigm of paving our own way. You know, like there's not that much to look up to. There's not that many people who have taken the path. And at the time when I first started, there was a lot of gatekeeping involved. No judgment. That was just a thing. You know, there was more of this scarcity mentality. And so I wasn't able to really go to the people that I admired and ask how they did it. And so I made a lot of mistakes along the way, learned a lot of really valuable lessons, and now entering this new paradigm of where we're all more comfortable with collaborating and sharing because there's plenty of room for us to succeed and grow together. And I think, like, as we know, with all these festivals and Burning Man, we can see that when we all come together to create something, it can be a lot bigger and way more magical than just one person. That was a tangent, but
Mm. Well, I love it. No, it's amazing. I had a similar experience at Burning Man just to see, I had been really deep into like the club culture and house music, progressive house music. And when I went to Burning Man, it was like, oh, wow, I found my people. I found what I've been looking for years. And this idea, like we're bringing our full selves to that experience. We're collaborating, we're contributing without the money aspect, and you can really see like the full expression and beauty of humans and their creativity, and like you said, just how much it can create. Love that. And yeah, and festivals like lightning in a bottle, I mean, they call them transformational festivals for a really good reason. Like if you're going and you're really open to what's being out there, and even the music is obviously kind of one of the main draws, but there's all this programming, there's all this educational and workshops, yoga, and then just connecting with your friends in that moment, you can really experience what the world is possible to us. So I love that. That is amazing. Yeah,
may
what
I add
else?
something on that note
Absolutely.
too? So I didn't consider myself an artist until I was 23, 24. I really struggled with imposter syndrome for quite a while. I remembered ever since I was a kid, I was always artistic, always wanted to be a dancer, but my parents tried to steer me in the direction of, the more logical route, playing piano. And so I was met with a lot of resistance with what I wanted to do. I started fire when I was 19, didn't really, grow up with dance lessons like a lot of people out there. And so I always felt like I didn't have what it took, or I didn't have enough to really do what I wanted to do. But going to these festivals, seeing the performers at Lightning in a Bottle, seeing all these artists being like, fuck it, I'm going to do it just because I love it, coming from a place of just a whole fuck yes, I love this and I'm going to do it anyways. And with a couple years of releasing that mentality of this narrative of like, oh, I didn't start dancing when I was 5, so how can I do this, and just doing it anyways, doesn't matter how old I am, it's never too late to do what I love. And so I guess my message is, it doesn't matter how old you are, if you love it and you feel called to it, just do it and watch the magic unfold and happen.
You had mentioned gatekeeping, which I do feel like that's hopefully changing. It's one of the reasons why, I wanted to start this podcast, is to really dig into people's stories. I think that's a great way to show that we all have that imposter syndrome. We all have that self-doubt. We all have those moments where you're like, I'm not sure if this is going to work out. Sometimes you do have to work the 9 to 5. Sometimes it is 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And that's just what it looks like. And it's not comfortable. And if you, like you said, if your heart is in it and you really want it, that's what matters. And the fulfillment and the reward, aside from money, it will come back, because ultimately you're putting your heart out there and you're trying. And I think, you know, so many of the guests that I've had so far, like, that is the common thread, is they didn't know, they weren't sure, but they tried anyways. You got to put yourself out there. You got to try. And I don't think there's any, like, the regret of not trying is so much worse than if you try and you fail. And if you fail, that's the time to learn, try again, and as long as you're not, on the streets homeless, like, there's always another shot. Right. So, man, that is amazing. You talked too about deprogramming. Like, tell me more about that. How did you approach that? Because I think we're all dealing with some level of, like, I should be this in a society. This is my timeline. I'm this year's old, so I should have X, Y, and Z. Or these are my friends that I went to high school with or college, and they're doing this. And that's tough. Like, it seems like you've really got a handle on that, and now you've found your own, who you are and what you want. Tell me more about that.
I guess for most of my life, maybe half of it, I struggled with this deep uh, existential crisis or unhappiness. And it came from a place of not really knowing who I was, what I wanted, and what my truth was. And this yearning to discover that truth through experience and community and art, and a commitment to discovering who I am and being curious. I think the aspect of curiosity is so important and crucial in discovering what that is, asking ourselves the right questions, like, what is it that I really want? Or what is it that I think I want? And really leaning into that. And I feel like when we ask ourselves these questions, the truth will come out, because that truth always wants to come out. That truth inside of all of us wants to be embodied. Like, our soul wants to follow its path and follow its purpose. It's up to us to step up and be accountable for discovering what that is. And for me, my method was, I actually wrote down everything that I'm good at on a sheet of paper, but then I went and circled what I actually like doing. Because just because I like doing something or people think I'm good at it doesn't mean that I actually want to do it. So I kind of built this spider web of everything that I was good at, then circled what I actually loved doing and tried to connect it. And it's interesting because we think there's only like one thing you can do. People ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, do I just have to be one thing? You know what I mean? But breaking out of that paradox and leaning into that gray area, we don't have to be black or white, and discovering that we can be more than one thing. And it's interesting because that doesn't even define who we are. The things that we do, in my opinion, is the product of our inner work and our love for whatever that is. And because even though I'm like considered a fire dancer, to me, that's just a product of my
Mm.
path and my journey and what's come from me being aligned with my truth. But that's not actually who I am. Who I am is much more than that.
Yeah. Wow. That is deep work. I mean, it is to disidentify yourself from what you do, to be like, I am, a lot of people say, like, I am this because that's their career. That's a trap, because as things change, you may lose that job, you may lose that, partner, you may use whatever. And then who are you? And so really, yeah, doing that work to really discover what you want, what fulfills you. That's great. I love the idea of writing down what you're good at and then what you actually like to do. That's a great tool. I've actually heard that before, and I think that's great advice. If you're stuck, if you're lost, you're like, what am I looking for? I want a different path than the one that's all set out for us, which we know, right? This, like, sort of prototypical life, at least for the Western United States, like, it doesn't seem like it gives people a lot of happiness and fulfillment. We've got, record levels of depression and obesity, and, like, there's just so much that isn't working on a societal level, on a human level. So yeah, I think it's amazing that you've blazed your own trail and found this way, and you're making, and like you said too, I think there's you're doing a lot of different things. You like, you're making your own costumes, like tell me maybe a little bit about like a week in your life. It seems like you're all over the place. You're traveling, you got different gigs, like some stuff is doing corporate gigs, you're just, I'm doing music gigs, making costumes all in one week.
Yeah, let's just say I have had a hard time keeping a romantic relationship for the last couple of years. um, yeah, I love to travel. I'm so fortunate to be able to travel and do what I love. I just got back from a short residency in Africa. And I get home. It's definitely an effort to carve time to feed and water like my personal connections with my dear friends and my lovers. But I deeply believe that if you want to, like, you can make time for anything. But yeah, it's definitely always a work in progress trying to find the balance in the times. But there's a lot of sleepless nights, and a lot of, okay, cool, I have 5 hours to sleep, like, gotta do that now. It's I try to find the balance in the chaos for sure, but there's something about it that's like, I'm in my early 30s, like, if not now, then when? This is the perfect time to do it. And I find a lot of, um, in a way, groundedness. And I feel like I'm able to really remember who I am with spontaneity and having a life that's not so linear. Like, I just feel like that's my path. I'm able to be more present. I can't, be on autopilot when I have to literally create new neural pathways in my brain to stay with what is happening in my life. But yeah, sometimes a week can be a couple corporate gigs, and then leaving the state or country for a few days or a few weeks, coming back, trying to reground, repack my bags really quick, maybe go on a date, maybe. And yeah, I try to balance it all with just a lot of like physical. I always check and see, like, okay, how am I physically? Am I dehydrated? Like, what does my body need? Then, like, how's my emotions? Like, what do I need? It's like meditation, journaling, pulling cards, like doing things that I feel called to. That's just like, that's my staple. Like, everything else changes, but that is what I wake up to and how I ground myself and keep going.
Hmm. I actually just, my mom was into tarot cards, but it never really shared that with me. But she had a couple decks, and then just recently someone shared that with me. What, can you just walk me through it? There may be people that are listening that don't know. What does that look like for you? I mean, obviously meditation and journaling, I think a lot of people get that, but what does pulling cards mean for you? What does that look like?
Yeah, I feel like pulling cards is just one of the ways to connect to like our higher self or like maybe the subconscious self. It doesn't have to, I mean, I do believe in magic and all of these things, but in a way, it's just a way to connect with ourselves a little deeper. It's just another form of a tool. So, in a way, when we're pulling cards, I usually use my left hand, which is the subconscious part, and it energetically pulls what maybe we need to hear or any advice that we have. And there's a lot of different ways to connect with ourselves. It doesn't need to necessarily be tarot cards, but I found a gravitation towards it. I tried it and it works for me. So if anyone is interested in leaning into like finding a different way to connect with themselves, I suggest seeing what you're drawn to, trying it all out. You don't have to commit to anything. You can always change your mind and lean into what you resonate with. And whatever helps you improve your quality of life and be your best self, like, that's the right thing for you. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's.
Yeah, it was interesting. It seems like, the card had um some information on it, some text, and then there was a book that went along with it. And then as we were reading the book, it's like what you're saying. It's like whatever jumped out at me gave me, it's like a prompt for more thought, for a deeper dive. And why is that? Why is that relationship, or why is that person, or why is that thing coming into my mind? And then you're just processing it, right? You're having a moment to think, which again, like I don't feel like enough of us do that. So I love the advice. An hour a day seems like time well spent to really check in with yourself and get grounded and get real about what you want in your life. Love that. Tell me about Africa. What that sounds amazing. What was going on there?
Oh boy, it was the most different experience I have ever had in my life, to put it nicely. I have done a lot of traveling in my life. I've done a lot of stuff by myself. I've always kind of prided myself in being like, I can go anywhere and alone and be able to handle my shit, like I'm a world traveler. And I went to Africa and my mind got absolutely blown. So I went to Lagos, Nigeria for a short residency. I had a one-way flight, because I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll want to stay longer. But let's just say I didn't, and I came back after a couple weeks. I'm really deeply grateful for that experience in a way. I really struggled with leaving my hotel room. The first time I went outside, I went to the beach, and at first it was just a couple people coming up wanting to take a photo with me because it's really rare for them to see someone who's not a person of color. And so they came up, asked for my photos, asked for my phone numbers, but then would be kind of aggressive about it when I said no, and literally followed me to my Uber. And the internet is just really bad there. So you could be waiting for your Uber and then the internet just shits out and you're like, well, I guess I'm stuck here or try to walk home. So it was interesting being in like a third world developing country with a lot of stuff going on, and coming from Los Angeles and just growing up in these big cities really allowed me to lean into like that deep, profound gratitude of how easy we have things here. Like I burned myself on accident, went to the pharmacy. They didn't have any band-aids or antiseptics, but they had lots of condoms and pregnancy tests. So good for them. But I was like, how do I clean my wound? Like, how do I do this in a proper way? So there was like a lot of little things. You can't drink the water, the tap water anyways. So it was a kind of a inner struggle for me drinking out of plastic water bottles the whole time and trying to be really mindful about, access to clean food. And I ended up trapping myself in my room almost the entire time because I didn't feel safe to
Oh,
leave. I didn't realize that I needed a bouncer, to feel safe and protected. I mean, there's a lot going on there. So, and the TV
mm,
wasn't working. I couldn't really watch Netflix or anything because of the internet. And so I ended up just really sitting with like a lot of shadow work, the deepest, grimiest parts of my soul, but then able to really get in there and reflect. And I feel like I did a year's worth of inner work in 2 weeks because I just had
wow.
so much time to slow down. I was like, I feel like because the club that I ended up working at, they were put a lot of money into renovating it. It used to be more of a strip club, but they wanted to make it classier, bring in performance art. And I was kind of like the guinea pig. So I came in to do fire
Mm.
shows and I was like, I never thought that I would be having the biggest inner transformation of my life above a strip club in fucking Lagos, Nigeria. Like, of course I would randomly manifest this. I've done a lot of weird shit, Jesse.
It'll make a really good chapter. Yeah. Yeah. That'll make a great chapter in your book. The Lagos, Nigeria. Wow. Well, yeah, it sounds like an adventure. You're glad you're safe. Yeah, it seems odd they didn't maybe get you security. Like it sounds like it was necessary, but they didn't have it.
Yeah, I
So
don't think they really understood. They're so used to how things are there. It's just normal for them. However, they did tell me not to go out alone at night. They were like, please don't go out alone at night. Like, just don't do it. And I was like, all right. But then one night I lost internet after the only way I felt like I could be safe in public was going to like the nicest restaurants in town. So I would take myself out to a really nice dinner. But one of the nights the internet shit out. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm walking home in the dark. And it was one of the sketchiest shit I had ever done in my life. I was like, well, if I die here, at least I could say I've done a lot of cool shit in my life. But
yeah.
I was fine because Nigeria actually has some of the highest rates of sex trafficking, kidnapping, corruption. Um, so it was really crazy being in a place like that.
I'm glad you made it back safe. I did want to hit on this story. You mentioned that you had burned yourself, and if it's okay, if we can talk about it, like you were pretty public about this injury that you had, and there was you made some really beautiful posts about like your physical appearance and that. Can you tell me that story?
So earlier this year, end of March or mid-March, after I got back from Envision Festival, so I do pretty crazy tricks with fire eating. It's one of the most dangerous things you could do with fire, but I just have this really deep, profound love for it, just a soul calling. And I had gotten a custom pair of fire eating torches that's super specific and particular. There's a lot of science that goes into vapor tricks and fire eating. If you want to look into that, you're more than welcome to. But I was doing this trick that I have done before at a show, but I didn't know at the time that depending on the temperature, like there's so many variants into vapor pulling, to say the least, that can go into having an accident or not. And I had an accident. I was pulling vapor out of the hole in my special customized torches and accidentally pulled out white gas, which is super flammable, one of the hottest things that fire performers commonly use. And my face and my neck caught on fire so fast. It all happened in a matter of seconds. It was like very little response, but luckily someone close to me had a wet towel, put it on my face. At the time I had a lot of adrenaline, so I couldn't really feel the pain yet, but I went straight to the bathroom and there was like, sorry to get graphic, but there was like skin coming off my face and my neck. And at first I was like, as a diehard performer, I was like, well, I don't look that bad. I can just put a sparkly mask on and go finish the show. And people around me were like, no, you're not going to finish the show. And I'm like, but there's just a few minutes left. Like, I gotta give the people what they want. And luckily, I turned around right when my face caught on fire. So the audience didn't really see what happened besides the people who worked there. But this chick was like, I'm a nurse and I'm saying you can't go back out there and you need to go to the emergency room. So my dear, dear best friend, Lizzie Rose, who was there, God bless her heart, I think it was more traumatic of an experience for her than me, took me to two hospitals. The first one, I walked in, they tried to put an ice pack on my face. I was like, as a fire spinner, I know that that's not the first thing that you're supposed to do. I don't feel like you guys actually know what you're doing. So then we drove to Burbank to one of luckily, the best burn centers in the United States. And the doctor walks in after I get my room and he's like, this is really bad. And basically I had second to third degree burns from under my nose down to my neck. And they immediately put me on some painkillers, which I was totally fine for. At the time, I had been 4 years sober. So that's how I broke my sobriety, with Percocet. But I was okay with that. And so, I decided that I asked the nurses to cover the mirror in my bathroom because literally 3 doctors walked in and they were like, this is really bad. Like, I was like, I smell like bacon. I probably look like bacon. Let's cover the mirrors. I don't want to look at myself. I just kind of want to really be present and flow with this. Like every meditation I've ever done, any inner work, any therapy session I've ever done literally builds up to moments like these of like staying calm, being centered. And, I only allowed 2 friends in at the time to look at me because I'm a performer. Like I understand and know that I am privileged to be able to look the way that I do and have that influence a lot of like the work that I'm able to do. So it was a huge ego death. And just seeing the looks on their faces, trying to be really sweet to me, telling me I'm still beautiful no matter what, but seeing the fear in their eyes, I was like, okay, it's bad. So I went through a lot of, okay, so if I'm not able to look the way that I do, and if I don't spin fire, who am I? And asking myself the real questions like, can I still love myself? Can I still accept myself? And with a lot of sitting in a room and being in a bed and not being able to move, I had to have like a little bit of surgery, nothing too crazy, but they had to like cut off some skin, like clean things up so I could heal properly. I had like, what is it called? I had skin grafts done. A new form of skin grafts that was more temporary. Luckily I got access to an oxygen tank and chamber, which I was really fortunate to do. And on the 5th or 6th day, I was like, you know what? I can love myself no matter what. I've always loved tiny things. If I can't do fire, I'll just go into a new passion of making tiny things because it's never too late to do what you love, right? Like I should follow my own advice. And on the 6th day, right before I left the hospital, I took the towel off the mirror and looked at myself and was like, oh, I don't look that bad. Not great, but not as bad as I thought, you know? And just following a regimen of physical to inner work. I did like medical qigong, had collagen, did all the things that people recommended me to do. My community was so lovely to be able to crowdfund me some expenses because I wasn't able to work for a little minute. And I have no scars left. I don't know why. I don't want to ask questions. I am just so fortunate. I've shared my remedies publicly on my Instagram with what I did and what I still do till this day because I was like, wow, this is so valuable, you know? But I'm just so fortunate to have had that experience, honestly, to be able to educate people on fire eating and learn from my mistakes. And, you know, because a lot of times there's this pride in performers or just artists in general where we might not want to share our mistakes because we feel like maybe it'll take away from our value or our professionalism. But I really sat with it before I shared it publicly because a part of me did not want to share it. You know, I was like, what if I don't get booked for gigs anymore because this happened? But just diving into like, you know what, I think there can be a lot of value in this. And this is part of my integrity and my truth to share what I learned and for everyone else to be able to learn from it and hopefully not make the mistakes that I did. And also to have that ego death, you know, like, yes, I do love myself. Yes, I do accept myself, even if I can't do fire anymore. So that was really cool. But I never had a thought in my mind that I would never do fire again. I was like, oh, I can't wait to do it again and do it right. You know? And that's how I know that I really loved it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's some massive lessons in there. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable. I could kind of feel you getting emotional there. That's a big moment. That's a big, you know, like there's a lot there to face that fear, to be honest with yourself and really look at the realities of it. And yeah, I think I watched most of that through your social media, through your Instagram, and I thought, wow, she is incredibly brave to be sharing that, and really like, you know, in some ways it's helpful to process it by sharing it with other people, and then you do get these reflections back from people that love you and support you. Like, wow, I am, you know, loved and supported. I'll say I broke my back, double rupture L4, L5 in 2009 to the point where I could basically almost not walk. I ended up having spine surgery and pretty much at like 95% recovery. And I share in that like every day. I think, wow, I am so lucky to be able to walk. I'm so lucky to have a body. I'm so lucky to have my health. So those lessons can bring you, like, you know, if you get that close to losing it, and then you're like, okay, wow, I can still do this, make the most of each day. So wow, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
And to share what my mentor slash therapist says, it's not about what happened or the mistakes that we made. It's about how fast we can get back on that horse and keep going.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think that when life tests you, there's always going to be bad stuff that happens, but how you handle it, how you choose to like react in the face of challenges. I'll say, you know, I managed Closey up until 2019. And when she decided to move on and work with new management, it was really hard. It was a really emotional time. And it was exactly what you're saying. It was like, okay, what do I do now? Like, how am I going to handle this? Am I going to get back up on the horse and try again? Like, what do I want to do with music? Why am I here? Was it always about that success, or was it really about being part of this community, creating art, supporting artists? So those are the tests that allow you to ask those questions, to really dive deeper into yourself. So yeah, it's like in the end, it becomes something you're grateful for, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, man, thank you. We have so many shared like friends and artists. I feel like you're one of the people, I guess the question is like, you've made a name for yourself. And I feel like it's such I love to see who you decide to work with and who asks you to be part of their shows. Like, I feel like that's such a a marker for like, okay, this is going to be a good event. Phoenix is on this part of this event. When I see you on something, I'm like, yeah, this is good. So how, like you mentioned networking, you mentioned building these relationships, like you're clearly you're very adept at doing that. I think some people maybe struggle with that. Like maybe as a piece of advice, what's your advice for networking and building relationships and kind of building your network so that you can work and participate? I know that's something that I think people ask me that a lot.
I think that there's something about, I grew up as an only child, and my childhood was really isolated. So I was able to develop certain social skills to literally, like, from a primal perspective, like stay alive. But I feel like at the end of the day, the most important thing is, how do we get in tune with that authenticity, right? Because we can feel energetically when someone wants something from us. And I know that when I feel that, it's not like, oh, they want to get to know me, they want something from me. It kind of pushes me a little further. So that magnetism, that place of like, I do this because I want to authentically connect with you and like love what you do, and doing it from a place of love and like pure-hearted intent, rather than I'm doing this to get somewhere or to connect with someone. So just being really like aware of like yourself and the why, like why are you doing something, right? Um, but I would say like Adam and Tene, Dim Insane's really amazing person. We've been friends for quite a while, and I would say he was one of the first like bigger artists that I started doing shows for many years ago. It just came from a place of like, you're fucking cool and we do cool shit together. I was lucky enough to perform for him at Envision Festival, and we just connected and just started collaborating. So in a way, just like maybe not forcing anything to happen, just really being in the flow and being willing to put yourself out there, and being that confidence, because I really do feel like that inner confidence really shows. I don't know if that's great advice, but it's the best thing I can think of. Being willing to reach out to artists and being vulnerable, and also being open to rejection, not having any expectations, I think is a big thing. And yeah, I've performed for Closey and Adam, and just I have a really great list of people I've been able to perform for, and I'm so fortunate to have been able to do that. Um, and I think it all just circles back to like keep doing what you love, and what's meant to happen will happen. Being willing to connect and open yourself up to like the community, and being clear with your intent and not having expectations, because if we do it for the fame, not that that's bad, but if we're trying to get popular or doing it for the fame, just come back to love and it'll all work out, in my opinion.
I think that's great advice. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Adam. Like, I feel like he's such a trailblazer. Like his early compilations with moody music, acid crunk, with putting on people like Ooh, and I mean, like I think Glitch Mob and a lot of those guys kind of came through that sound, that vibe. Like he has been holding it down. He's such a real one, and yeah, mad props to him. I feel like he doesn't always get all the love he deserves of what a critical part of the scene I think he's helped to create. And yeah, and I think you for me come across incredibly authentic and approachable, but also you can feel the boundaries. People come to me and like they want me to listen to their music, and if I think the advice I would say is like get to know them a little bit, have a personal dialogue before you make an ask or want anything from them, or try to offer some sort of help in what they're doing first and foremost, because like you said, you can feel that energy when it's like you feel like kind of being used to an aspect. So yeah, love that.
I think that on the note of like creating a name for yourself too, it's like we're all really amazing and have a lot to offer. I feel like difference between witnessing someone who the difference between people who are doing something versus the people who aren't, I guess this might not be a great analogy, let's see how it goes, is like because no ideas, in my opinion, are original. We all have access to these ideas and inspirations. But the huge difference between someone who's out there doing it is that they decided to do it and to start it. And sometimes that's the most difficult thing as an artist. I know the initiation is always the most difficult for me, but once you just start it, you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to figure out like a blueprint and just take it step by step to get to where I want to be, and having that like clear vision and goal, because it's like music, art, performance art. The only difference is someone was like, I'm going to make videos, I'm going to create my own costumes, and I'm just going to do the thing, versus someone who thinks about it, but there might be like that imposter syndrome or whatever it is that's holding you back. I think it's all about like taking that leap and being like, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyways. And also kind of like there's so many talented and beautiful performance artists and artists in general, but I think that just kind of trying to step outside of the box and tapping into the like that uniqueness. Like, I know I'm not the best fire spinner or dancer out there, but trying to kind of like create more authentic uniqueness through costumes and bringing like these different visions to life, and like working with certain people that I admire. Like, there's when I see someone that I think is just so incredible, sometimes there used to be more jealousy, but I feel like I've really kind of reprogrammed my brain to being like, they're so amazing and this is so inspiring. What if I collaborated with them? What if we can learn from each other? You know?
Yes, yes. No, I think that's a great. You mentioned sort of like the the limited mindset, the like when people were gatekeeping, and I think, like you said, if you can just reprogram to say like, just reach out, like there's things that you can offer that person. They'll be excited about that energy exchange, or not, like you said, being open to rejection too, just trying, like, and that inertia, right? Like you said, there's your career is built on this inertia. Like, you performed with Adam, and then that opened up all these other doors, and playing it in Vision, and then all of a sudden, like, you have this brand, you have this cohesive offering that people can see very clearly, and they're like, wow, I want to collaborate with her. So that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, and I wanted to add too that like any jealousy or inspiration that we feel from other artists, even if we don't end up working with them or collaborating with them, I feel like is always kind of like a doorway to deeper self-perception. It's always a reminder of like, oh, it's like we can see like our potential in that, and it's a reminder of like, I can access that, and how do I get to that too? Because it's this energy that we admire. So in a way, allowing you to step up and like put more energy into whatever it is that's calling to us, and step into our highest selves.
So you're like making friends with the jealousy, or looking at that energy in a different way, and then that kind of calls you into action.
Yeah, I think that jealousy can be a huge gift in relationships or anything at all, if we channel it the right way. It's not something to be demonized, because I feel like jealousy can be like a negative emotion, but I feel like it's a tool to fucking kill it.
Yes, get it. Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, like, I've been talking to, I have a business mentor, and she was kind of talking about like procrastination. Sometimes when I'm booked to do a gig and there's money on the line, that there's some level of procrastination, because it's like my creativity's over here, and then the money and the sort of the have to are over there. Does that mess with you at all? Do you have to kind of work through that?
Yeah, that's interesting, right? That's a great question. I have learned, as I've been reprogramming my brain, coming from an upbringing of not that much money, really switching my relationship with money, and finding that balance. When I was like a super hippie, I was like, oh, it's not about the money, it's about the art, right? And like, yeah, for sure, there's truth in that. But then we also live in a society where we need money to thrive, and money isn't bad. Money is a tool for us to keep doing bigger things and investing more into ourselves and our art and our well-being. So being able to switch that dynamic and having that balance between like art and love and money, and how everything can flow together if we're just in our integrity. I think that having integrity in the business is, and in life in general is one of the most important and pivotal things to stay in our truth. I've done shows and done jobs where I'm like, actually, like that didn't really align with me. I'm not going to do that again. And sometimes we don't understand that until we do those jobs and understand that that's not in alignment with ourselves. So, there's a balance between like, yes, I need to support myself and like, pay rent and X, Y, and Z. And also I am deserving of this money and not demonizing that. But then also having that abundance mentality of like being able to say no to things that don't line up with us and what we want to do.
Great answer. Yeah, basically, what I was trying to ask, which I think you hit on really well, is the relationship between creativity and money, and how those things, when they start to intertwine, can get really weird in your brain. Where,
Yeah.
like you just explained. So, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, let's talk about where your path is heading. What are you excited about? What's coming
Woo.
up for you?
Well, I guess this isn't going to air for a couple months, but on the subject of gatekeeping, I actually love to do workshops and share everything that I know. So, end of January to February, I'm actually doing Cirque Trincation, this really amazing workshop thrown by Tammy Firefly at Selva Armonia in Costa Rica. So, I'll be sharing a lot of like costuming, being a performer, and also, of course, some fire stuff. My group, Dakini and I, will be performing at Envision. And actually, one of my dearest friends and one of the most amazing fire performers, Sam Toby, also known as Flow Mayhem, we're going to be doing a how to like become a performer at Envision as well. So if this comes out before that, which I think it will, definitely catch our workshop there where talk about we try to talk about everything you need to know within an hour to 90 minutes of becoming a performer and really stepping into like that spotlight. But I'll be doing a lot more talks and workshops. I'm really in a mode where I'm really passionate about sharing everything and empowering people to be able to step into that and with a lot of love and integrity and hopefully not make all the mistakes that I had to make.
That's amazing. It is so fun to teach. It's so fun to share, and also what I've found is when you do, there's a deeper level of learning for yourself. It forces you to really make it concise and think about it from start to finish. Write your thoughts down, things that I thought I knew, and then when I was like tasked to explain this, that, or the other, I'm like, oh wait, I maybe should do some more homework on this. So that's amazing. Envision is amazing. I hope you guys have the best time. And also Sam, she performed at Light in a Bottle. I had never met or seen her perform, and then she did the dart flow, and I was just blown away. And she's so strong and so fast, and I was just like, whoa. So
Yeah.
you guys are a dynamic duo. Big ups on that. Can't wait to see it. Hopefully, maybe I can make it down to Envision. That would be great to see you guys there.
Yes. I'll be at Texas Eclipse too. I know you're going to that. Lots of family and community.
Yes. That's gonna be, I think that's gonna be one for the books. Like hopefully yeah. Well, anything else before we go?
No, I just wanted to say too, last thing is like it's definitely a full circle. I've been listening to so many artists on Gravitas and performing for so many artists on Gravitas for so long. And so it's definitely a big honor to kind of like loop around and be able to do a podcast with you. Like you've been such a big influence in the music community and especially this niche part of bass music and something that's changed my life and I know a lot of other people's too. So
Oh,
thanks
thank
for having
you.
me on here.
Ah, my pleasure, my honor. Thank you for coming. Phoenix, you are amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. We love you, and we will catch you next time. Bye bye.
Yay. I love you guys.